Poor nurse spent her last $5 to buy a drink. Unaware her blind date was the millionaire CEO. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's return to the main character. Lena Carter finishes another night shift as dawn presses pale light against the hospital windows, her feet aching, her mind quiet and tired. She checks her wallet beside the locker, counts crumpled singles, and pauses at $5, the last bill folded twice like a promise she keeps breaking. She told herself she would go straight home, but a message from her friend waits, insisting one normal drink will not ruin a careful life. Lena breathes in antiseptic and coffee, changes clothes, and steps into the street where the city feels louder than her thoughts. The bar is small, warm, and forgiving, the kind of place where no one asks questions, and when she meets the man from the blind date, he looks ordinary enough to be safe. His name is Ethan. He says it simply, and his voice does not rush. They sit close enough to hear the ice settle in their glasses, and when the bartender asks, Lena orders water, then changes her mind, choosing the cheapest drink instead. She reaches for her wallet before Ethan can speak, places the $5 bill on the counter, and feels a sharp relief mixed with shame. Ethan notices the bill, the careful way she smooths it, the way she avoids his eyes, and he says nothing. They talk about work without titles, about long hours and small victories, and Lena finds herself smiling at jokes she did not expect to understand. When he asks about her day, she answers honestly, about holding hands and holding breath, about listening to machines at 3 a.m, and he listens like it matters. She asks what he does, and he shrugs, says he works in tech, says it lightly, as if the words carry no weight. A silence stretches, gentle, unafraid, and for the first time. In weeks, Lena feels seen without being measured. Outside, a siren fades. Inside, the music hums low, and Ethan studies her hands, the faint marks from gloves, the tired grace. He considers paying, considers telling the truth, and chooses stillness instead. Lena lifts her glass, takes a small sip, and thinks maybe one drink is allowed. She does not know that this $5 will follow them, that this quiet choice will change the shape of her heart, and that the man across from her is already learning how much power feels like when he refuses to use it. Tonight becomes a thin bridge between caution and hope, and Lena stands on it without naming the fear, noticing how Ethan asks permission with his eyes, how he waits for her pace, how nothing is taken. He laughs softly, not loud, not practiced, and she relaxes, telling a story about a patient who squeezed her fingers once and let go, about learning when to stay and when to step back. Ethan nods, absorbing details, storing them, and Lena wonders why being heard feels heavier than being helped. The bartender wipes the counter, last call passes unnoticed, and rain taps the window like a reminder. Lena checks the time, thinks of the bus, thinks of rent, thinks of rules she follows to survive. Ethan offers to walk her out, says it carefully, and she agrees because the night feels kind. They step into cool air, the city breathing around them, and for a moment Lena imagines a future small enough to touch. She thanks him for listening. He thanks her for trusting, and neither reaches for more. As they part, Ethan watches her disappear toward the stoplight, feeling. Lena does not sleep when she gets home. She sits on the edge of her bed, shoes still on, listening to the refrigerator hum like a distant engine, replaying the night with a precision she usually reserves for medication dosages. The $5 bill is gone, yet its absence feels heavier than its presence ever did. She showers, the water lukewarm, and practices forgetting, the way she always does after long shifts and small risks. By noon, she is back at the hospital, hair pulled tight, badge clipped straight, moving through corridors that smell like bleach and hope. This is her world before anything changes, the quiet discipline that keeps her upright. She works 12 hours without checking her phone, charts vitals, lifts a patient twice her weight, swallows the ache in her wrists, and tells herself that one drink does not mean one mistake. During a brief break, she opens her locker and finds a coffee she does not remember buying, still warm, sitting where her lunch should be. There is a note folded beneath it, written carefully, thanking her for last night and for the way she listens. No name, no number, just a steady hand and restraint. Lena feels a flutter she refuses to label and tucks the note away. Later, after shift change, she steps outside and sees Ethan leaning against the brick wall across the street, coat simple, posture patient, as if he has learned to wait by necessity. He does not cross the street until she notices him, and when he does, he keeps a respectful distance. He asks if she is okay. He asks if coffee was all right. She nods, surprised by the care embedded in the question. They walk together toward the bus stop, not touching, matching pace, the city moving around them like a tide. He says he did not want to intrude, that he did not want to assume. She appreciates the words because no one ever assumes too little with her. They talk about schedules and weather and the strange kindness of strangers, and Lena admits that money is always loud in her head, counting itself. Ethan listens, eyes steady, and says nothing that sounds like a solution. At the corner, a black car idles, engine smooth, and the driver glances at Ethan, waiting. Ethan lifts a finger, barely a gesture, and the car rolls away without protest. Lena notices, files it away without comment, the way she files irregular heartbeats for later review. They agree to meet again, not for drinks, but for breakfast after her night shift, something practical, something earned. Over the next days, the pattern holds. Breakfasts become walks. Walks become conversations that lean toward truth without tipping into confession. Ethan knows too much about hospital systems, about budgets and procurement, and how decisions ripple down to patient care, and when Lena asks, he deflects gently, calling it curiosity. She tells him about her mother, about learning to be careful early, about promises that shrink when money grows thin. He does not interrupt. He does not correct. He never offers to pay. Instead, he mirrors her choices, orders the same, waits for her to finish speaking, and watches her hands when she is tired. The power gap begins to show itself in slivers, in the way servers greet him with recognition they cannot place, in the way rooms quiet when he enters, in the calm he carries like a tailored coat. Lena senses it and keeps her balance by choosing restraint. She likes him, which feels dangerous. She likes that he asks before stepping closer. She likes that he leaves first when the hour grows late. One evening, she spots him exiting a glass tower downtown, reflection splitting his face into 1,000 versions, and she understands without proof that he belongs to a world she navigates only through consequences. She does not confront him. She chooses to keep the line where it is, thin and deliberate. At the hospital, a flyer goes up announcing a charity gala tied to new medical equipment, a name listed that makes administrators straighten their backs. Lena scans it once, then twice, feeling a quiet tension settle. She thinks of the $5, the coffee note, the idling car, and the way Ethan never reaches for more than she offers. The bus arrives, doors hissing open, and Lena steps on, knowing that something is approaching, something public and unavoidable, and that the small, careful world she has built is about to be tested. Lena begins to notice the differences she has been pretending not to see, the subtle shifts that do not announce themselves but change the temperature of a room. It starts with how people look at Ethan before they look at her, the pause that hangs in the air when he speaks, the way conversations adjust around his presence without him asking. During breakfast one morning, a manager appears with apologies for the wait and a complimentary plate that Ethan did not request, and Lena watches him decline it gently, redirecting the attention back to her, as if shielding her from a light she did not invite. She appreciates the effort and resents the necessity at the same time. The power gap does not shout, it whispers, and Lena has learned that whispers can be louder than noise. At work, she is assigned to assist with preparations for the upcoming gala, a small duty meant to showcase staff involvement, and she feels the hospital tighten with anticipation. Administrators rehearse smiles, procurement lists circulate, and the equipment wing hums with expectation. Lena keeps her head down, focusing on patient care, but the name on the flyers follows her like a shadow. She does not say it out loud. She does not ask Ethan questions that would force an answer. Instead, she measures moments. She notes how he always waits for her to finish a sentence before responding, how he never checks his phone when she is speaking, how he asks permission before stepping closer, even when the street is crowded. These are not the habits of a man accustomed to being told no, and that contradiction unsettles her more than the wealth she suspects. One evening, they walk past the hospital loading dock, and Ethan pauses, eyes narrowing with a familiarity that surprises him. He comments on supply chain delays, on how small decisions can stall entire units, and Lena listens, heart tightening, because he sounds like someone who decides outcomes, not someone who observes them. She challenges him softly, asks why he cares. He answers honestly, saying that systems matter because people pay the price when they fail. It is not a lie, but it is not the whole truth. Lena feels the line between them stretch, thin as wire, and she steps carefully, choosing curiosity without confrontation. Days pass in this careful orbit. Ethan learns her routines, the cadence of her nights, the way she breathes when she is exhausted. Lena learns his silences, the moments when his gaze drifts toward the city skyline, calculating something she cannot see. Once, as they cross a busy intersection, a man calls Ethan by his last name, respectful and quick, and Ethan responds with a nod that ends the exchange. Lena pretends not to hear, but the sound lodges somewhere deep, rearranging her assumptions. She begins to understand that the imbalance is not just about money, it is about choice. Ethan can choose concealment. She can only choose caution. At the gala briefing, Lena is asked to wear a specific badge and stand near the entrance to assist donors. The request feels innocuous, yet it places her at the threshold between worlds. She considers declining, then agrees, telling herself it is just another shift, just another task. That night, Ethan mentions the event casually, says he might attend, says it like an afterthought. Lena studies his face, the calm that never fractures, and realizes that he is practicing restraint, perhaps for her sake, perhaps for his own. The understanding lands heavy. She wants him to speak, to name the distance, to make it smaller or larger, anything but invisible. Instead, he asks how her day was, and she answers, describing a patient who thanked her with a squeeze of the hand, describing the weight of trust. Ethan listens, absorbing, and Lena wonders what it costs him to remain quiet. The night before the gala, Lena cannot sleep. She lays out her uniform, presses it carefully, and thinks about the $5 that started this, about the coffee note, about the idling car that obeyed a single finger. She tells herself that dignity is not measured by proximity to power, that she has survived on less than honesty before. As dawn breaks, she makes a decision that is both brave and fragile, to show up as herself, without demands, without illusions, and to let the truth arrive when it must. Somewhere across the city, Ethan prepares for the same event with a different weight in his chest, understanding that the quiet balance they have built is about to be tested in public, and that once seen, power cannot be unseen. The hospital lights glow against the morning, and Lena steps inside, unaware that the threshold she is about to cross will not be marked by doors, but by names spoken aloud. Lena arrives at the hospital earlier than usual on the day of the gala, the building already humming with a different kind of energy, one that has nothing to do with healing and everything to do with performance. Tables are draped, lights tested, flowers positioned with surgical precision, and everyone seems to be practicing a better version of themselves. She pins on the special badge she was given and tells herself this is still her workplace, still familiar ground, even as donors begin to fill the lobby with polished shoes and practiced smiles. She moves where she is told, offering directions, answering questions, keeping her voice steady. Every so often she feels it, a subtle shift in the air, as if the building itself is holding its breath. When Ethan appears, he does not arrive loudly. There is no announcement, no entourage pressing in, only a quiet recognition that spreads outward as people straighten and step aside. Lena sees him from across the room, dressed simply but unmistakably composed, and for a moment the noise fades. Their eyes meet, and in that instant she understands that he did not come by accident. He did not come to surprise her. He came knowing exactly what this would mean. He approaches slowly, stopping a few steps away, giving her space in a room where space is suddenly rare. He asks if she is okay. She nods because the word feels safer than the truth. Around them, conversations adjust, attention tilts, and Lena feels the power gap solidify into something tangible, something with edges. She realizes that this is the inciting moment, the point where pretending not to see becomes its own kind of lie. Ethan speaks quietly, explaining that he did not plan to be announced tonight, that he intended to attend briefly and leave. He says he wanted to tell her sooner, and the admission lands without comfort. Lena hears herself respond calmly, thanking him for saying something now, even as her chest tightens. A staff coordinator interrupts, addressing Ethan with a title Lena has only seen on flyers, and the name echoes in her ears, confirming what she already knew. She watches Ethan correct the coordinator gently, deflecting praise, redirecting attention, but the damage is done. The line between them has been illuminated, and there is no stepping back into shadow. Lena resumes her duties with practiced focus, guiding guests, smiling when required, but every movement feels measured against a new weight. Ethan watches from a distance, resisting the urge to follow, understanding that proximity would only amplify the imbalance he has been trying to contain. As the evening unfolds, speeches begin, applause swells, and Lena stands at the edge of the crowd, listening to words about innovation and generosity, about lives changed by funding and foresight. She believes in the mission. She always has. What unsettles her is realizing that the man she has been walking with in the quiet hours is the same man shaping these outcomes from rooms she has never entered. During a lull, Ethan approaches again, this time offering an apology that is careful and incomplete. He says he should have trusted her sooner. He says he did not want to risk what they had. Lena hears the fear beneath the restraint and recognizes it because it mirrors her own. She tells him that trust is not a favor granted by silence, that it grows best in daylight. Her voice remains low, even, and the restraint hurts more than anger would. Ethan absorbs the words without defense. He does not argue. He does not justify. He simply acknowledges the truth of what she is saying, and for the first time that night, he looks uncertain. The gala reaches its peak, a moment when Ethan is invited to the stage. He hesitates, glancing toward Lena as if asking permission. He knows he does not have the right to request. She gives a small nod, not encouragement, but acceptance of what is inevitable. When his name is spoken aloud, the applause is immediate and overwhelming, and Lena feels the sound move through her like a wave. She watches him stand under the lights, composed and distant, and understands that this is the consequence of choices made on both sides. The inciting incident is complete not because a secret has been revealed, but because the relationship has crossed into a space where intention alone cannot equalize power. As the speech concludes and the crowd disperses, Lena steps away from the entrance, needing air, needing distance. Ethan does not follow. He lets the space remain, honoring the boundaries she has not yet voiced. Outside, the night is cool and quiet, and Lena exhales, aware that what began with $5 and a single drink has arrived at a threshold that will demand a decision. She does not know yet what that decision will be, only that the careful balance they built has shifted, and the next step will change everything. Lena returns to her routines with a precision that feels newly deliberate, as if every step must now prove something to herself. The days after the gala blur into careful normalcy, charts signed, beds made, hands held, but the memory of Ethan on the stage lingers like a low note she cannot shake. He does not text. He does not call. The absence feels intentional, respectful, and that somehow makes it heavier. At work, colleagues speak about the event in softened tones, praising generosity and vision, and Lena listens without adding her own impressions. She keeps her focus narrow, grounded in tasks she can complete and outcomes she can measure. On her third night back, she finds a folded note taped to her locker, written in the same steady hand as before, asking if she would like breakfast after her shift. No pressure, no expectation. She stares at the paper for a long moment, then tucks it into her pocket and finishes her rounds. They meet at a diner that smells like coffee and toast, nothing polished, nothing impressed. Ethan arrives first and stands when she enters, a small courtesy that steadies her. They sit across from each other, sunlight cutting through the window, and speak about ordinary things. He asks about a patient she mentioned once, remembering details that matter. She asks about his morning, and he answers plainly, without titles or victories. The conversation moves carefully, like a bridge built plank by plank. Ethan does not apologize again. Lena does not accuse. Instead, They acknowledge the space between them by honoring it. Over the following weeks, this becomes their rhythm. Walks after night shifts, breakfasts without spectacle, silences that do not rush to fill themselves. Ethan never offers solutions to problems she does not ask him to solve. Lena never pretends the power gap has disappeared. It remains present, managed rather than denied. She notices the way he chooses places where no one recognizes him, how he sits with his back to the wall, how he waits for her cues. He notices how she flinches when attention lingers too long, how she relaxes when choices are hers alone. One evening, rain catches them mid-walk, and they take shelter beneath a storefront awning, close enough to feel warmth without touching. Ethan asks if she wants to leave. Lena shakes her head, watching the water trace lines on the glass. He stays, quiet and patient, and the moment stretches into something tender. At the hospital, Lena is assigned a complex case, a patient requiring equipment her unit has been requesting for months. The approval comes swiftly, unusually so, and Lena feels a tightening in her chest. She checks the paperwork, finds everything in order, yet the timing unsettles her. She does not ask Ethan about it. That night, she tells him about the patient, about the relief and the unease, and he listens with a seriousness that borders on reverence. He tells her he did not intervene, that processes matter, that he understands why she would worry. His voice holds no defensiveness, only care. Lena believes him because he understands. The fear beneath her question, trust, she realizes, is being tested not by words, but by restraint. Their closeness grows in increments so small they might be missed by anyone else. A hand offered when the bus lurches, then withdrawn. A jacket held open against the cold, then returned. A laugh shared, then quiet reclaimed. The slow burn steadies them, replacing urgency with intention. Still, the world presses in. Invitations arrive that Ethan declines. Messages pile up that he silences. Lena sees the cost of his choices and feels the weight of being the reason. She tells him one morning that she does not want to be hidden. He answers that he does not want to hide her. The difference matters. As weeks pass, Lena begins to feel something unfamiliar, a sense that she is choosing rather than surviving. It scares her. She names it carefully, tells Ethan she needs time, tells him she cannot promise an ending. He accepts the terms without negotiation, saying only that time is something he can offer freely. One night, after a difficult shift, Lena finds him waiting by the diner door, holding 2 coffees, one exactly how she likes it. She takes the cup, feels the warmth, and for the first time since the gala, allows herself to lean into the moment. The slow burn has done its work, binding them through patience rather than revelation, and yet beneath the calm, a truth waits, coiled and quiet, ready to surface when circumstance demands it, reminding Lena that even the most careful bridges must eventually bear weight. Lena thinks she understands the balance they have built until the day it breaks without warning. It happens during an ordinary afternoon, when her unit receives an emergency transfer that strains every available resource. She moves on instinct, voice steady, hands precise, doing what she has done hundreds of times before. In the middle of the controlled chaos, an administrator pulls her aside, speaking quickly about a sudden equipment upgrade approved for their floor, effective immediately. The timing is impossible to ignore. Lena feels heat rise behind her eyes, not anger yet, but something sharper, like disappointment arriving early. She finishes the shift on autopilot, her body moving while her mind replays every careful boundary she thought they had agreed upon. When she steps outside, Ethan is there, waiting as he often does, but tonight the sight of him feels different, heavier. She does not greet him. She walks past, forcing him to follow, the silence between them tight as a wire. At the diner, she does not order coffee. She asks him directly if he had anything to do with the approval. Ethan looks surprised, then pained, and answers immediately that he did not. He explains the process, the committees, the distance between his role and daily approvals, speaking clearly, calmly. Lena listens, but the words struggle to reach her past the feeling that something fundamental has shifted. She tells him it does not matter whether he intended it, that the world bends around him without his permission, and that she is the one who feels it first. The truth lands hard. Ethan does not interrupt. He does not defend his influence. He acknowledges it, saying he cannot turn it off, only choose how he uses it. Lena hears the honesty and feels the ache beneath it, because the problem is no longer a misunderstanding. It is a reality they cannot negotiate away. The emotional turning point arrives quietly, without raised voices or dramatic exits. Lena tells him she cannot keep guessing whether her successes are hers alone. She tells him she needs a life where her work stands without question. Ethan listens, absorbing the cost of loving someone who demands equality in a world built on imbalance. He tells her he understands, that he would step back if she asks, that he will not fight a boundary drawn to protect her dignity. The words hurt more than any argument would have. They leave the diner separately, a choice that feels deliberate and necessary. Days pass without contact. Lena returns to long shifts and careful routines, but the absence changes the air around her. She notices how often she reaches for her phone, how often she stops herself. At work, the new equipment saves a patient's life, and Lena feels pride mixed with guilt she did not earn. She tells herself outcomes matter more than feelings, yet the doubt persists. Ethan, meanwhile, keeps his distance publicly and privately, declining invitations, redirecting projects, refusing to be present where his presence would complicate her world. The restraint costs him more than anyone sees. One night, Lena encounters him unexpectedly in the hospital corridor, standing near a donor plaque, reading names as if searching for something human among the letters. They stop a few feet apart. He asks if she is okay. She answers honestly that she is not sure. He tells her he misses her voice. She tells him she misses feeling uncomplicated. Neither reaches for the other. The space between them becomes the decision. Later, Lena finds an envelope in her locker, heavier than a note, containing the $5 bill, flattened carefully, and a simple message written once, without flourish, saying that he is stepping away from all involvement connected to her unit, not as a gesture, but as a promise to remove doubt where he can. There is no plea, no expectation of reward. Lena sits on the bench and lets the weight of it settle. The gesture is not dramatic, but it is costly, and she recognizes the respect in it. She does not run to find him. She does not call. She goes home and lays the bill on her table, staring at it as if it holds a map she has been avoiding. The emotional turning point has passed, leaving clarity and ache in equal measure. Lena understands now that love here is not about grand reveals or sacrifices performed in public. It is about choosing restraint when power would be easier, about stepping back when stepping forward would compromise the other. She breathes, steadies herself, and knows that whatever comes next will require a decision made without guarantees. Somewhere across the city, Ethan does the same, accepting that the quiet line they crossed cannot be uncrossed, and that the next time they meet, it will be under terms neither of them can control, setting the stage for a confrontation that will demand truth without protection. Lena tries to keep her world small after the envelope, but the world refuses to cooperate. Whispers begin at the hospital first, soft at the edges, then sharper, shaped by curiosity and resentment. Someone mentions her name alongside the gala. Someone else mentions the new equipment again, tying coincidence into suspicion. Lena feels it in the way conversations pause when she enters the break room, in the polite smiles that do not reach eyes. She doubles down on precision, on arriving early and leaving late, on letting her work speak without commentary. It is not enough. A supervisor calls her into an office and asks careful questions about boundaries and appearances, about whether she feels pressure from donors, about whether she understands how optics can distort intent. Lena answers evenly, telling the truth without embellishment, stating that she has accepted nothing and asked for nothing. The meeting ends without resolution, leaving a residue of doubt that follows her back to the floor. Across the city, Ethan faces a different pressure, one that carries his last name. Board members raise concerns about his recent withdrawals from visibility, about stalled partnerships, about rumors linking him to hospital staff. They ask if his judgment has been compromised. He listens, calm but rigid, explaining that restraint is not weakness, that integrity costs more than speed. The room is unconvinced. A decision looms, framed as protection for the organization. Ethan understands that distance alone will not silence speculation. That power creates stories whether used or not. The conflict tightens when a local outlet publishes a vague piece about philanthropy and influence. careful to avoid names while implying enough to inflame imagination. Lena reads it during a late break and feels the words scrape against her ribs. She deletes messages from friends asking if she is okay, deletes drafts of explanations she does not owe. That night, she runs into Ethan outside the hospital, the coincidence unavoidable. They stand beneath a streetlight that flickers, the space between them charged with everything unsaid. He tells her about the article, about the board, about the narrative forming without their consent. She tells him about the meeting, about how quickly doubt spreads when power is nearby. Neither accuses. The pain comes from alignment rather than opposition. Ethan says he will address it publicly if needed. Lena hears the offer and recoils, not from pride, but from the cost. She tells him that public defense would only confirm the story, that she refuses to be framed as a problem to solve. He hears the boundary and agrees, but the agreement does not relieve the tension. They part again, heavier than before. Days later, a formal complaint is filed anonymously, alleging favoritism in staffing assignments. The claim is thin, easily disproven, yet its existence triggers protocol. Lena is placed on temporary reassignment pending review, a neutral action with a sharp edge. She packs her locker in silence, fingers steady, heart loud. Ethan learns of it through a third party and feels something cold settle in his chest. He knows he did not cause this, and that knowledge offers no comfort. He considers intervening and rejects the impulse. Instead, he requests an independent audit of his own philanthropic channels, opening himself to scrutiny to remove any shadow that could touch her. The move angers his board and delays initiatives he cares about. The conflict escalates not through confrontation, but through parallel sacrifices that fail to meet in the middle. Lena spends her reassignment nights in a different wing, away from familiar faces, doing the same work without the same sense of belonging. She hears that Ethan has withdrawn funding from a gala follow-up, hears speculation that he is punishing the hospital. She knows it is not true and feels the injustice of stories that erase nuance. When the review concludes, she is cleared quietly, without apology, and returned to her unit with the same badge and fewer illusions. Ethan attends a press briefing unrelated to her, and is asked an offhand question about boundaries in philanthropy. He answers with measured words about accountability and distance, about letting systems work, and watches the narrative twist anyway. The quiet climax is approaching, not with raised voices, but with accumulated weight. Lena and Ethan meet once more at the diner that started everything, drawn by habit and unresolved gravity. They sit across from each other, hands folded, the $5 bill between them like a relic. Lena says she cannot keep paying the price of proximity to his power. Ethan says he cannot keep choosing distance without losing her. The truth lands without solution. Outside, rain begins again, and the diner window fogs, blurring the street into streaks of light. They stand to leave at the same time, hesitate, then step apart, understanding that the next choice will either fracture them completely or force a reckoning neither can postpone, leaving the question hanging in the air, unanswered and unavoidable. Lena does not expect the call, because nothing about the past weeks has trained her to expect kindness without conditions. It comes late, near the end of a double shift, a message asking if she can meet for coffee, specifying the old diner, specifying tonight, specifying no urgency. She agrees because avoidance has begun to feel like another kind of surrender. When she arrives, the diner is nearly empty, lights low, rain ticking softly against the windows. Ethan is already there, sitting in the same booth as before, hands folded, posture calm. On the table between them rests a small white plate, and on it lies the $5 bill, flattened, smoothed, unmistakable. He does not greet her with explanations. He asks if she is tired. She answers honestly that she is. He nods as if that is the only truth that matters. He tells her he has resigned from the hospital board advisory role he was invited into after the gala, declined future appearances tied to her workplace, and requested that all donations connected to her unit be routed through anonymous channels managed without his oversight. He says it plainly, without ceremony, and waits. Lena listens, heart steadying and aching at the same time. She tells him that this does not erase what happened. He agrees. She tells him that it does not guarantee safety. He agrees again. The quiet between them is not empty. It is full of restraint finally shared. Ethan slides the plate a few inches closer and explains that the $5 was never about money, that it was about choice, about watching her choose dignity when no one was watching. He says he kept it because it reminded him of the cost of care, of listening without leverage. He says he is not asking for forgiveness or certainty, only for the chance to stand where power cannot speak for him. Lena feels the words land not as persuasion, but as release. She tells him she does not want grand gestures that put her back under a microscope. He says he understands, and that this is why he chose something small. Outside, the rain eases, the city breathing softer. The waitress approaches, and Ethan lets Lena order first, as he always does. She orders coffee, the cheapest kind, and smiles at the familiarity of the choice. Ethan orders the same. When the cups arrive, steam rising, Lena notices how her shoulders lower without permission. She asks him why he stayed quiet through the worst of it. He answers that he was learning how to be equal by refusing the tools that make him loud. The answer does not solve everything, but it aligns with what she has felt rather than feared. They speak about the future without naming it, about boundaries that will need tending, about the likelihood of mistakes. Ethan says he will accept correction without defense. Lena says she will speak sooner rather than later. Neither promises permanence. Instead, Ethan reaches into his pocket and places his watch on the table, a simple piece, worn at the edges. He tells her he will not wear it when they are together, not because it matters to anyone else, but because it reminds him of schedules he controls. The gesture is quiet, almost invisible, and it moves her more than any public declaration could. Lena does not touch the watch. She does not need to. She looks at the $5 bill again and realizes that what has changed is not the power gap, but the willingness to be accountable to it. She tells Ethan she is willing to try again, slowly, without guarantees, with the understanding that walking away remains an option. Ethan accepts the terms without hesitation. They sit with their coffee, not reaching across the table, letting the decision breathe. Outside, a bus passes, headlights sweeping briefly across the diner, illuminating their faces and then moving on. The night feels ordinary again, and in that ordinariness, Lena finds relief. As they stand to leave, Ethan asks if she wants company on the walk home. She considers, then says yes, because tonight the choice feels like hers alone. They step into the cool air side by side, leaving the $5 bill behind on the table, not as a token surrendered, but as a reminder that beginnings can be remade without spectacle. The door closes softly behind them, and the quiet carries forward, holding the promise of what might follow, unresolved yet steady, inviting the next step without forcing it. Lena and Ethan walk side by side without touching, the city quieter than it has been in weeks, as if it too has decided to give them space. The air smells like wet pavement and late-night bakeries, and Lena notices how ordinary everything feels, which surprises her more than any grand gesture could. In the days that follow, life does not transform overnight. There are no headlines to retract, no sudden apologies from systems that prefer silence. Instead, there is work. Lena returns to her unit with a steadiness she earned, not granted, and the equipment functions as it should, saving time, saving lives, without anyone needing to say why. Ethan keeps his promise, remaining absent where his presence would complicate, present only where he is invited as a person rather than a position. They see each other in the margins, early mornings and late evenings, building something that looks less like a story and more like a practice. One afternoon, Lena receives a message asking if she can attend a small community forum hosted by a neighborhood clinic, nothing formal, no donors, just patients and staff. She hesitates, then invites Ethan, making the terms clear. He accepts without conditions. At the forum, no one recognizes him, and Lena introduces him simply by his first name. He listens more than he speaks, learning how care looks when resources are thin and trust is everything. On the walk home, Lena realizes that what surprises her is not his humility, but his consistency. Weeks pass, and the $5 bill remains at the diner, paid forward by the waitress who noticed it and added it to a tip jar for someone else. Lena hears about it later and smiles, understanding that symbols do not need to be owned to matter. One night, as they stand at a crosswalk, Ethan asks Lena a question he has been holding back, whether she believes two people can meet across a gap and build something without pretending the gap does not exist. Lena answers that she believes it depends on whether both are willing to feel the weight without using it. The light changes, and they cross together, steps aligned. There is no promise spoken aloud, no label applied, only a shared decision repeated daily. The ending, if it can be called that, arrives quietly on a morning when Lena buys coffee for a stranger who is counting change, slipping a few dollars onto the counter and walking away without looking back. She feels the circle close, not with a perfect shape, but with meaning. She thinks about how love did not arrive as rescue, how dignity was not purchased, how power learned to lower its voice. Ethan waits outside, hands in his pockets, watching the street, and when she joins him, he smiles in a way that does not ask for anything. The camera of this story pulls back not to reveal a kiss or a ring, but to show two people choosing each other within the limits of their world, choosing honesty over convenience, patience over spectacle. And maybe that is the surprise, that the ending is not about what they gain, but about what they refuse to take. If this story left you thinking about the small choices that reveal who we are, about how respect can be louder than promises, and how love grows best when it does not need to be proven, then it has done what it set out to do. If you felt seen in Lena's caution or understood in Ethan's restraint, you are not alone. Stories like this remind us that true connection is built in quiet moments, with care and accountability, one decision at a time. If you enjoyed this story, please give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who might need a reminder that kindness and integrity still matter. Your support helps us bring you more thoughtful stories like this, and we are grateful you spent this time with us.